Hey there, welcome back to the show. This is Phil. This is Phil Vischer Podcast. I am here with Christian Taylor.
Hi, Phil.
Hi, Christian. How are you?
You good? You kind of sound like you're in a rush.
I'm always in a rush because there's so much to talk about. And we don't have Skye Jethani. We have a Skye Jethani stand-in simulator.
Definitely not a simulator.
Doppelganger.
He has hair.
Yeah,
Can't be a doppelganger
this one has
either.
Hair. This is our friend Josh
thing.
Lindsay. Hi,
Hey,
Josh.
how's it
Lindsay.
going?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Glad to have you here.
I'm excited to be here.
I'm going to do the theme song, and then we'll talk about what we're going to talk about. Hey, it's a podcast. What do you know? Hey, it's a podcast. And we got video. Hey, it's a podcast. So lend an ear. The Phil Vischer Podcast starts right here. Oh, we won't talk to Skye, but Josh Lindsay's here, and Christian's here too, and she's not drinking a beer.
No, I'm not.
We're teetotalers. Hey, it's a podcast, so lend an ear. The Phil Vischer Podcast starts right here. The Phil Vischer Podcast starts right here. You know the word teetotaler?
Where did that come from?
Do you know where that came from?
Where'd it come from?
Do you know?
No, I don't know.
Josh,
no.
teetotaler? My grandparents were teetotalers. They talked about being teetotalers. Initially, when the push started for prohibition in the United States, it was simply to get rid of hard liquor, not beer and wine.
Okay.
So they wanted to get rid of saloons, which were damaging, but get rid of hard liquor only, particularly whiskey, which was causing lots of problems because it was cheap and highly alcoholic. But then, as they got momentum, some of the folks driving the movement said, no, we don't want just hard liquor. We want all liquor. We want to be total prohibitionists with a capital T.
Teetotalers.
And so people that were for capital T, total prohibition, got nicknamed teetotalers.
That is mind-opening.
Fascinating.
I had never known that.
This is where Skye would insert joke right
yes,
here.
Yes, he would. He's so good at those little one-liners.
No, I'm not Skye.
Okay. Skye
not gonna
is in India, or getting back from India today. He's getting back from India today.
I've missed him.
But he's not back yet. Yeah, so hopefully he'll have some good stories.
I'm sure he will.
I had a baby.
Yes, you did. Congratulations, you're a grandpa.
I had a grandbaby. Our oldest daughter, Shelby, and her husband, Thomas, had their first child.
And her name is?
Marley.
Marley,
my
I know
granddaughter.
about a movie called Marley and Me.
Yeah. There's lots of movies about lots of things. Doesn't mean she's a dog. So that was fun. It went well. If you were following along at home.
Did it make you feel old?
It made me feel weird.
Yeah.
Because I have a baby that's kind of my baby, but not my baby. Because there's a baby in between this baby and me.
Yeah.
This baby and me has a baby in between, and that's my baby.
Sort of.
Has a baby.
Right, your baby has a baby.
Yeah, and that's pretty weird. It is much, I gotta say, it's much less stressful going through it when there's a generation in between you and the baby. Mm-hmm. And when you've done it before.
Right.
You know, when you've been there, and it's like, oh, it'll be fine, don't worry about it.
And everything was fine, no complications.
Everything was fine. Yeah,
That's
and
wonderful.
she's very mild-mannered. She doesn't cry much. Yeah, the first thing I said to her was, do you want to go to Disney World? Because that's what I'm excited about, is like
taking her to
my
Disney
kids
World.
are too old.
Isn't the first baby supposed to be the easy, mild-mannered one, so you end up having a second one?
Yeah, I think that's God's great gift to womankind, is deception and birthing practices.
I will say this. I used to babysit Phil's kids.
That's right.
You also babysat mine.
Yes, the other day.
Holy cow.
Yeah, the other day, actually.
Wow.
We had a stalker at our house. I had to have Josh come spend the night.
We're here.
It's a true story. I am so glad you were there for me.
Here with Josh, who is our collective babysitter.
Now he's all grown up.
That's right. I have my own
Josh
kids.
is all grown up.
Has
with
his own kids.
How many kids do you have?
3.
3.
Do you know that Angie, his wife, you know this, she started to work for you, and Josh and Angie met at Big Idea.
What?
Yes.
We are one of 5 couples to be wed out of Big
Really?
Idea. Yeah.
We figured it out. It was 5.
That was my last count. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so Angie was living with me during that time. And I went to go to your office one day, and I stopped and met this really handsome boy. And I said, Angie,
and then he
what
introduced
about that one?
Angie to Christian.
Yep.
Angie, go marry him.
Yep, that's what I said.
And someday you'll be on a podcast at the same time in like 100 years.
Very strange.
It's funny how our lives all weave together.
It is very strange. Josh is here because he and Skye, if you're a Patreon subscriber, you know this. They are doing another podcast called The Movie Proposal, which, how many of those have you done?
7.
7?
7.
Wow, they've done 7 of them. If you're a Patreon subscriber, you can go listen to all of them for about a half an hour. They talk about movies. Why is it called The Movie Proposal, Josh?
Well, it has a wedding theme, which I know sounds odd.
With
but
you and Skye?
Yes. It works great. So it's based on the something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. And every week we pick a film, and each of us must come with a proposal. So we did Doctor Strange, I think was the last one, and we said, I propose that Doctor Strange is, and then we make a proposal, and we have to defend it and discuss it.
What was your proposal about Doctor Strange?
Oh, I remember Skye's. His was a lot more interesting.
How does that work?
What was Skye's proposal about Doctor Strange?
His was, it's the most Christian film of 2016 and will be the most boycotted film by Christians of 2016.
Oh, that's interesting.
That is very interesting.
I can kind
I'll
of see
have to
his
listen
point.
to this podcast.
Oh, it's great.
You have to subscribe on Patreon.
Oh, well, I
$5
am.
minimum.
I think I just need to actually listen.
But wait, isn't it true that we're going to make those podcasts, we're going to release them into the wild?
Yes, that is true.
Isn't this true, Josh?
Yes, I believe tomorrow it'll be available to the public.
Well, when's tomorrow? I don't know when I'm listening
that's true.
to this.
What is
Josh.
today? December.
Today is December 5th. It's Monday.
Yeah.
We released this podcast on Tuesday.
Oh, this podcast thing is still new to me. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So when
Tuesday,
do you release yours?
So
Tuesday.
apparently Tuesday.
December
it
6th.
will go up on Tuesday, and it's going to go up on iTunes and Stitcher? Maybe.
We're working that out. The interns over there aren't quite sure.
We're releasing it into the wild, but we're not sure where.
And will it ever be a video podcast so I can actually watch? Because I'm much more into that.
I don't think that's been decided either.
Okay.
But we do have studios or cameras and lights, and we can turn them on. So sure, why not?
Awesome.
Let's do it.
Okay. So the proposal is something old, something new,
Something old, something new, something borrowed.
like an old film that you like that you want to talk about.
So and usually it's something from when we were kids, and some of the feedback we've gotten is, can you go a little bit older,
Like the Apple Dumpling Gang?
or even
Like
older than
things
that,
that
like black and
predate-
white,
like Casablanca?
Yeah, real classic films, but our classics are usually Raiders of the Lost Ark or Star
Maltese
Wars.
Falcon?
No, not so much. We discussed that for a few minutes. He has one, I have one. Then the something new is a film that is either recently released, it's like Doctor Strange, something maybe on Netflix that's fairly new, or something that's just been released to DVD. So relatively new in one of those worlds. Then we discuss that. We make a proposal. We discuss it, and it can range from being very theological, where God comes into it, or politics, or just whether we liked it or not. So it's not really a review of is the film good or not necessarily, but just something that stood out to us. I compared Star Trek film that came out this summer to the Democratic National Convention, and we discussed that. So that was interesting.
So why are you so passionate about film stuff?
Well, I love movies. I have ever since I was a kid. I mean, I remember watching Raiders of the Lost Ark. Well, first of all, I grew up on VHS, and you usually had 2 movies to choose from. So for us, it was Raiders of the Lost Ark or Wizard of Oz.
You're younger than me because I grew up on reel to reel.
Those are 2 good ones.
They are, yeah. And so the argument would be, which one would we watch? And the girls would fight for Wizard of Oz, and the boys would fight for Raiders. But watching Raiders was the film that made me want to make movies. And so as a kid, I was very thoughtful about what I would need to do. I got into acting because I thought I would need to understand acting to be a director.
Which is true.
Yeah, and so those types of things. Eventually, I became 18, had to decide to go to college, and I became a speech pathologist. That's what I landed on.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. And it was because I was fearful of pursuing film as a career, and I really didn't think God would bless a decision like that. It seemed very selfish to me to like do something that I really wanted to do.
Okay.
It's a little messed up thinking.
That was backwards theology.
It was backward theology. It was many years ago. But it was really more out of fear than anything. So I got a degree in speech pathology. Over those 4 years, I learned to hate speech pathology and at the same time learned that, God could bless me or at least be happy with a decision to pursue a career in film. And that's when I decided to go to film school. Film school is, I did 1 year of that, but while I was there, that's when I got introduced to Big Idea. Give a shout out to David and Mindy Rausch, friends of mine from college, who said, you need to check out Big Idea
Productions.
They were in Chicago. I got on the website, and there's probably 3 moments in my life where something like this happened. And I read the website, I jumped off, I called my sister, and I said, I know what I'm doing with the rest of my life. And I was convinced.
What I thought too.
That's what I thought too.
I was halfway through the year. I was convinced I'd get hired next week. There were no job openings. I had talked to no one, but I was convinced. 8 months of strategic planning, talking to people, emailing, getting a hold of the producers and so forth. I got finally hired, not as a film director. That wasn't
happen.
No, low man on the totem pole, production assistant. But I was happy to take.
That's where you got to start.
It is.
And how long were you
3 years
there? 3 years until it exploded.
Till Jonah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It was the premiere of Jonah.
Yeah.
And then
I was
goodbye.
There. I remember. That was a sad night because you knew what was going on, but not everyone else did.
Yeah. Right.
But I want to say that was okay. It was one of the best
They're
times in my
now.
life.
It's really all right.
No, he still hasn't forgiven me.
Well, there's nothing to forgive. It just happened, right? But I met my wife there. Met the Taylors that way. In fact, indirectly met Skye that way. So it was an awesome experience.
Okay. Cool. Okay. Did you know? I just have a few news stories.
Okay.
Before we talk more about movies.
Okay.
What?
Well, remember, I have something to talk about.
Oh yeah, you have something to talk about too. You did something last week.
I did.
Before, 2 weeks ago. When was it?
Actually last week, last Tuesday.
Last Tuesday.
Yeah, I was invited.
What did you do?
Yes, I was invited to speak at the Northfield Community Fellowship Church at their women's tea.
Which is where?
It's in Tremont, Illinois. So,
Tremont?
Yep. It's about 2.5, 3 hours south of here near Peoria.
Okay.
It's a sweet little church, and there was a huge group of women, like 500 women. And I just thought this event was really impressive to me because there was a very large group, but it was headed up by a very small group of our dedicated podcast fans.
Really?
And they were basically all around like 25 or younger. And they had taken over this event to try to plan it. And they are sort of this rebellious little undercurrent in this big conservative, traditional church. But they listen to our podcast and they think about things very critically. And they really wanted to introduce some new ideas and sort of new ways of thinking into this event.
Okay.
And so they invited me.
Reached out to you and you went.
I went and I talked a little bit about what it's like to walk with God, thanks to Skye, and how that looks in life's ups and downs and difficulties, but mostly really to just call them into a deeper relationship of walking with God and talked about what that looked like. But I was so encouraged by people in this small little town getting really passionate about living out, the message of Christ in a culture that kind of is different and more entrenched than the way that they're thinking. They're being very bold. And these young kids are just taking leadership. That doesn't happen a lot around this area. Right. Like most kids 25 and younger are still living in their parents' basements. And
according to our friend Kara Powell, that's one of the key ways to get kids to stay engaged in church.
Get them involved?
Get them in leadership.
Yeah.
Give them something to do.
Well, I was blown away with what they were doing and the kind of maturity they had. The other thing was they were going out into the community. This one couple, Rachel actually, who invited me, they have 2 coffee shops that they now own and are kind of spreading the love of Christ by serving the community and bringing people into their their store. It was just really very eye-opening to me and encouraging that there are this new younger group that sometimes we sort of talk about in a negative light, these millennials or whatever.
No, we love the millennials.
Or the challenges
Some of
that
our
they
best
have.
interns are millennials.
That's true. But, there's just some amazing millennials out there, obviously. So thanks for letting me, talk
God
about
bless
that.
the
Shout out to
millennials.
all of you guys. I had a lovely time and loved meeting you and your family. So thanks for having me.
All right. They didn't invite Skye and I. Why
Yeah,
didn't they
well,
invite Skye and I?
I don't know.
We
They
don't
must.
get to go.
They told me I was the heart of the podcast.
Really? They said
Yeah,
that?
they did.
They said that out loud?
They said that out loud.
Oh, man.
You're the brains and foundation.
Oh, no. That's Skye. I'm the ukulele.
Yeah.
Shut
They
up.
all love the ukulele, by the way,
I thought
and they
Plicky
love.
Pete was the heart.
They said don't apologize when you make mistakes. Just roll with it.
Oh,
They
that's
think
nice.
they think it's great, just the way it is.
Okay.
All right.
Do you know that more hotels are checking out of the Bible business?
I didn't know they were in the Bible business.
Marriott, have you ever bumped
Oh,
into
you
a
mean the
hotel
Gideons?
to
In
get
your
a
drawer.
Bible in
Yeah,
your
yeah.
Okay. Marriott International, the world's largest hotel company, supplies a Bible and the Book of Mormon in the rooms of every other hotel in the franchise, but the company has recently decided that no religious materials should be offered at two of its newest millennial-oriented hotel brands,
Those millennials.
Moxie and Edition hotels. Have you ever stayed in a Moxie?
I've heard of a Moxie. There's
haven't.
one
Have you really?
in Warrenville.
There's a
Really?
Moxie in Warrenville? We got to go check it out.
Yeah, it's a funky looking.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's for millennials.
I
Do millennials
believe
stay
it.
in hotels?
Are you
Do the
making this
millennials
up?
travel?
It looks like a long stay kind of place, like if
Okay.
you're traveling
Yeah.
for business.
And then Edition
Oh,
is the
it's
other brand.
millennial oriented. It really is.
Yeah, that's what I said.
I know. I don't know what I was thinking.
And do you know why? Do you know why they're not putting Bibles in those hotels? This is what Marriott spokeswoman Felicia Farrar McLemore said.
She has a big name.
Yes, she does. It's because the religious books don't fit the personality of the brands. Because Moxie and Edition hotels are geared toward fun-loving millennials. And there's nothing fun about the Bible and the Book of Mormon.
Well, they haven't read what I've read in the Bible.
And they haven't seen the Book of Mormon.
So
That's a skyline.
I know.
a recent survey by a hospitality analytics company found that the percentage of hotels that offer religious materials in rooms has dropped significantly over the last decade, from 95% in 2006 to 48% this year. Bibles are disappearing from hotel rooms like that.
What started it to begin with?
The Gideons.
The Gideons.
Oh, okay.
But
The
you know,
Gideons.
here's the thing.
My grandpa was a Gideon.
But how many
forever.
Gideons do you know now?
Oh,
Good point.
Oh, funny you should ask.
My grandfather was a Gideon. Did
My
you say that?
Yeah, my
So was
grandfather
mine.
was a Gideon.
Not mine.
There are the Gideons today. Okay, Bible started to become a hotel standard in the late 1800s when three traveling businessmen founded Gideons International with a plan to spread the gospel by placing the Bible in hotel rooms across the country. The nonprofit group today, has 270,000 members in 200 countries. Just last year, Gideon International spent $100 million to distribute Bibles to hotels, prisons, hospitals, and other locations, about the same amount as 2015.
Well, let me ask you.
Go Gideons.
I am like the target generation that would use a Bible in a hotel room, but
Yeah.
I think in all the years I've been staying in hotels, I maybe used it once.
Yeah.
Have you ever used it?
Maybe once or twice, just to see, what kind of Bible do they put
Yeah,
in a
exactly.
hotel room?
Right. And now with technology, you just pull up on your
Yeah,
phone if you need it.
Right.
Right.
It is somewhat superfluous.
Yeah.
So should we get mad about it? Do we care?
I don't.
I don't either.
We have 2 votes for not caring.
Do you care?
I think it's interesting as a kind of a cultural marker to say we all used to agree that this was a good thing, and now, if we want to reach the fun people, we better not have a Bible. Although they said actually elsewhere in some of these hotels, they don't have drawers in the nightstands.
Oh, so
it's a
there's really nowhere to
practical.
put it.
So there's nowhere to put it
Yeah.
unless you'd have it sitting out, and that would seem kind of creepy.
But,
here's your
Josh-
Bible, here's your shampoo, here's your Bible.
Josh has a point, though. I mean, if they're targeting millennials,
Yeah.
millennials are going to use their phone. They're not going to use.
Right.
They're not going to go get a Bible out of a drawer.
This is probably true. So it's
It's
maybe
true even for me, and I'm not a millennial.
no harm, no foul. Maybe.
Someone's going to get upset.
It still says,
of course.
It says something.
But
It's a
I do think
change.
you're right. It's a change.
I don't like change.
It's a cultural marker.
I don't like change. I want everything to stay the same way.
But isn't it like the whole political thing you guys talk about where like Christians have felt like this is our country and now they're feeling like not so much?
So are we being oppressed by the removal of our sacred scriptures from the travel lodge?
I guess so.
One could argue that, the liberal left-leaning populace
is winning.
Are
they replacing it with what? The Mother Jones catalog?
I don't know. But
I don't think they're replacing it with anything.
But honestly,
I think it's a more pluralistic society, and it's we took the Christian readers out of schools about 120 years ago.
Right.
So
I think you're right. It is a cultural marker that lets us know this is probably the end of something.
Okay, here's another interesting marker. Study in Canada. The fastest growing churches have two things: modern worship
and money. I'm just guessing here.
What are they, buying people?
I don't know. Well, if it's growing, they got to have money to
Why?
I don't know. Anyway, Go ahead.
Good try. The fastest growing churches have two things: modern worship.
Can I guess?
Yeah.
A coffee bar.
Okay, this is a fun game. I want to guess the next one.
Fastest growing churches have two things.
What's the first one?
Modern worship.
Modern worship. Okay, let me guess.
And
puppies.
A playland.
Play place. That's a good
play
one.
place.
Wow. This isn't going well. And they teach a literal interpretation of the Bible.
Lame. Coffee bar is much more interesting.
They take the Bible seriously. A Canadian study has found that mainline Protestant churches that have both modern worship services and teach a literal interpretation of the Bible grow faster. Now, you always have to ask, what do you mean by literal interpretation of the Bible? But what they usually mean is they take it seriously.
Well, so it's not... when I hear you say that, I'm thinking the Answers in Genesis crowd.
Right.
Is that what you mean?
It's not young earth, or we're not supposed to trim our beards and eat bacon.
It's not that.
Not that literal.
It's not that extreme. It's just
not
that they
that
take it seriously.
The study showed that services at growing churches featured contemporary worship with drums and guitars, while declining churches favored traditional styles of worship with organ and choir. And they took theology more seriously, and they're quoting one person who has a big church in Canada. I think the wisdom of the study is the two parts. There does need to be a modern sense of an expression of the faith, while at the same time a conservative Orthodox view of Christianity. So Orthodox Christianity, traditional Christianity presented progressively. Correct. That is the key to growth.
I see that. Well, I'm a Gen X, and at least in my circle of friends, it's going from they grew up in more traditional type stuff, and so they ran to more evangelical kind of rock band on the stage and more free flowing.
Yeah.
To now, we're parents, and they're seeking things that more have liturgy and structure.
That is what I see the trend in my group too. They're going. Some are even going to the Catholic Church.
I've seen that,
and really going back to the liturgical worship.
I've got friends that have gone Greek Orthodox.
Yeah.
And I've got friends that are going Anglican.
So does this mean at the younger ages? Because
I don't know what this means. No, this isn't about a generation. This is just about what churches are getting bigger and what churches are getting smaller in Canada.
Oh, in Canada.
Oh, I forgot we're in Canada.
It's a Canadian
Well, that changes
study.
everything.
It's a Canadian study. It's because...
But that is interesting because I would have thought that they would have by now started declining as well, especially after we had Francis Chan on and he talked about this new...
Yeah, didn't they hear Francis Chan?
Yeah, right.
Didn't
Francis Chan's got this whole new thing going on.
Okay, I thought that was kind of interesting, so I put it. See, we're not talking about politics this week, so
I'm dying
doing
to though.
Other story. No, you're not.
I have a question.
No, you don't. You don't have a question.
It's a really good question.
No, well, no.
All right,
we're not
going there.
We're not talking about politics.
I'm sure people are relieved.
Yeah, that's why we're not talking about politics.
Okay.
Finally,
or Miley Cyrus.
How about abortion?
Oh.
This isn't political, though. Okay, the latest study out, U.S. abortion rates have now fallen to their lowest level in decades. The number and rate of abortions tallied by federal authorities have fallen to their lowest level in decades, according to data released on Wednesday. The latest annual report by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, incorporating data from all of America's states, say the abortion rate for 2013, I guess that's the latest, they've got all the numbers, was 12.5 abortions per 1,000 women. Okay? Not only is that down from 2012, it is half what the rate was in 1980, and the last time the CDC recorded a lower abortion rate was in 1971, which was 2 years before Roe v. Wade.
Well, this doesn't make any sense at all. Isn't this like the most liberal we have? Oh, see, I'm getting into the political thing, but isn't this the most liberal time in our abortion history?
In what measure?
Well, we've had Obama for 8 years.
In approval of abortion?
In like the support of Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
The
We've been supporting Planned Parenthood for a long time.
Well, I know, but I just think in this last 8 years, there has been, a much bigger push for this to be more mainstream.
But there's also been a much bigger push on the state level to come up with restrictions limiting abortion, such as Texas's new rule that they proposed last week or the week before that all remains from abortions must be cremated or buried,
right,
and can't be disposed of, which just makes it that much harder for a clinic to do their daily processes. So, but this is the interesting thing is Skye, if he was here, he would be jumping all over this because that was one of the topics he discussed in his Sunday school class recently, is that we actually think abortion is much worse than it is. That it's been declining almost every year for the last 35 years now, and is now actually, so we've been saying we got to overturn Roe v. Wade so we can get abortions back to where they were before Roe v. Wade. Guess what? They already are.
Right.
Abortions are literally where they were before Roe v. Wade.
So what are the reasons for that then?
Isn't it amazing? No one knows for sure. There's lots of proposed reasons. Better access to contraceptives. Better sex ed in schools, less stigma about having a child out of marriage. And then also they discovered that the rate of abortions declines faster, so that the abortion rate declines more when the economy is good, because people feel like, okay, I can afford to have a child right now. So when there's a recession, the rate goes up. When there's economic growth, the rate goes down. And we've had really good years of growth in the last 40 years, so the rate has gone down quite a bit.
What about the morning after pill?
That's included in the abortion statistics.
Oh.
That's considered an abortion.
Well, so what am I supposed to do if I'm a hardline abortion opponent?
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? Because I really thought that Donald Trump and the whole Supreme Court thing was so super critical and important.
You're not getting political with this, are you?
I'm trying not to. Okay. I thought it was so important because if I elected Donald Trump and if I elected he put in these conservative judges, then the abortion rates would fall.
That's possible. It's possible that they could fall even further. But they've already fallen to back where they were before Roe v. Wade. And that's really, because abortion was not illegal before Roe v. Wade. It's maybe something that we all don't
Wait, say
understand.
that again?
Abortion was not illegal before Roe v. Wade.
Really?
It was determined on a state-by-state basis. So
it wasn't federally illegal.
Abortion, it was not federally illegal. It was illegal in some states. So if you needed an abortion, you could drive.
Go to a different state.
You could go to a different state. I believe it was legal in New York and some other liberal states. So, and that's what, even Donald Trump has said. If Roe v. Wade is overturned, it doesn't make abortion illegal. It pushes it back to the states. So it would go back the way it was, but in terms of how many people are choosing to have abortions, it's already back where it was, which is interesting.
That's very
considering
interesting.
How much emphasis we've been putting on that issue as we have to do something about this.
Well, and it'll be interesting, too, to see if he does make these changes, will they drop even further or will they rise? Who knows?
I don't know.
Only time will tell.
I don't know.
I guess we won't know for another 3 to 6 more years.
Ironically,
Probably 6.
the rate of decline of the abortion rate has decreased when Republicans were in the office and increased when Democrats were in the office.
Really? Yes. Where's that? I would love to see that study. Where would I find that?
That was Skye came out with that in his class.
Why would that be?
Partly because Democrats have put policies in place that are more likely to prevent unwanted pregnancies,
such as
the availability of contraceptives for free. Republicans tend to be opposed to that. We don't want people getting contraceptives for free. They shouldn't be having sex. We promote abstinence, not safe sex.
Huh.
Promoting safe sex is more likely to reduce the abortion rate than promoting abstinence.
Well, that's a tricky bit.
I'm looking forward to the responses to this podcast.
Well,
I'm not taking any sides here.
These are just
I'm
facts
just saying
he's
these are just
presenting.
facts.
So I think he is.
Won't matter. Doesn't matter.
Just facts. They're just facts, Josh.
Well, that's why I would like us to show where the facts are,
Just facts.
so we could
in my
review them
brain. The facts are in my fact holder.
Oh gosh.
I call my
now
brain
we're in trouble.
my fact bucket of brain.
You're getting awfully
You're
close to
going
other
off.
words.
Okay. I thought those were three interesting stories that I was hoping were non-political, but Christian turned one of them political anyway.
Sorry.
That's okay. We can talk about that more when Skye's back because he
has a lot to add.
Okay, Josh, you're interested in faith issues and you're interested in movies.
I am.
Do they ever come together? Is there an intersection between faith and movies?
Well, you should tell us that because you tried to make a few.
I'm being the interviewer.
Oh, okay.
I'm not the interviewee.
Yes. As a former employee of Big Idea, I can verify that, yes, it is true.
Was that an anomaly? The whole Big Idea thing, was it just an anomaly?
Did it
I
really
hope
even
not.
happen?
Did it even
or is
happen?
It like a dream?
Was it a dream?
Like, way back when?
It was a dream.
Okay, what's the first movie that you remember as a kid?
Oh, Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Really?
That was a spiritual.
No.
Oh.
No, I didn't
just
say that
movie.
yet.
Okay.
I didn't say that.
It is kind of spiritual.
The one that had the big impact
is?
on you were like, whoa.
Oh,
that's-
hands down,
Okay.
Raiders of the Lost Ark.
What was the first movie that terrified you as a kid that you remember being scared of?
Psycho.
As a child?
You saw
I
Psycho?
was 12.
You saw it?
Still.
I'm going to talk to your dad.
I was at boarding school at
Oh,
the
you were
time.
at boarding school?
Yeah.
Okay.
It
Because
was
for me, there were two.
What
there were
was
two that I distinctly remember being terrified by when I was young. And one was Wizard of Oz.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That one
it's
got
And
me.
the other
Scary.
was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Yes,
What
the,
was scary
the whole
about-
man with the
man
children.
who steals children.
Oh,
There's an
yeah.
evil man
Yes.
That'd
who
be bad.
sneaks into people's houses
Chitty Chitty Bang
and
Bang, I
steals
forgot
children.
about
Why
that.
is that a good plot line for a children's movie? That scared me spitless.
Me too. Me too.
But,
I
but
was
all
so scared.
stories, Hansel and Gretel, all those stories
No,
have.
but that was from 200 years ago.
I had
when
nightmares
kids,
about
when
that
kids
kid.
didn't get scared of anything because they had to kill goats every morning.
I was
when they
scared
got up.
in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. If we're going to go way back then.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
the witch. You know, or the,
yeah.
She was really scary.
Well, I remember this wasn't a movie, but when Michael Jackson came out with Thriller, we
Yes.
got a copy of that, and it was a big deal, and everyone in the neighborhood came over to watch it, and I watched it from outside. I looked in the basement
Yeah.
window. I was too afraid to watch it.
Outside
Actually-
in the dark by yourself.
No, it was during the day. It was during the day.
How old are you?
I'm almost 42.
Oh, gosh. I was in high school when that came out. How old? You
Yeah,
were
so
like,
was I. Hey, because we're
It
the
was
same
still
age.
my
scary.
word.
Okay, so then what's the first movie you remember thinking, oh, wow, this speaks to me on a spiritual level, not just on a, ooh, that's exciting. You know, when do you remember noticing
Oh.
they can have spiritual impact?
Chariots of Fire.
Ah,
So my
yes.
parents, they were the ones that would get the movies, and it was usually a musical.
Yeah.
So Fiddler on the Roof, Hello Dolly, or something like Chariots of Fire. And that was one where it was very normal. Like it was, I don't know, I was entertained. It's more of an adult film.
Yeah.
Not really a kid's film.
Right.
But he quotes the Bible. He speaks about his faith. And I remember that talk he gives after a race, standing in the rain.
Yep.
And so it just kind of normalized it.
Did it surprise you? Do you remember thinking, oh, wow.
They mentioned Jesus?
It's church talk in a movie.
No, it seemed
it was
true to life.
Mine would be Chariots of
Yeah,
Fire
I
also.
forgot about that.
That and also around the same time was Out of Africa. And so that for me had
Robert
a lot
Redford?
of Robert Redford and Meryl Streep had a lot
saw
of spiritual
I
stuff
don't
in there.
remember it.
Profound.
It had spiritual stuff?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Go watch it again.
I'll have to go
But
watch it again.
Interesting side note, my husband's grandfather was a 3-time Olympian medalist.
Yeah.
And he was in that
He was in the movie?
His character was in the movie
Oh,
running
no kidding.
against Lord whatever his name is.
Fauntleroy?
Abrams?
No, remember the Lord who was
No, I'm serious.
like the
Harold
blonde-
Abrams.
Not he wasn't Harold
Oh,
Abrams.
Abrahams.
It wasn't Harold, it was the
Abrams.
other
was?
guy
Yeah, I think
with
so.
blonde hair who did the hurdles.
Yeah. Oh, right. Who was royal?
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
So anyway, his grandfather won that race in that Olympics.
Oh, wow.
And you can
that's
see him.
Good to know.
Yeah.
It's not really our
Frederick
topic
Morgan
for the
Taylor.
day.
I know. It was just an interesting side note.
Okay, Josh.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So give us some examples of movies that you think have spiritual impact that you really appreciate.
Okay, well, Chariots of Fire was at the top of my list.
Yeah.
When he's talking to his sister in that film, and he said, God made me for a purpose, but
When
he
I
also made me
run,
fast.
I
Right.
feel his pleasure.
That's right. And so to me, that was kind of like going back to the whole film and wanting to be a film director. That felt like a selfish desire, and that I shouldn't pursue it. But like that, that God's saying, no, go for it, right? There's things in you that you can do good things with this, right? So that had a big impact. I also saw The Mission pretty young.
Okay. I've never watched that.
I haven't either.
Really?
I need to see it.
Okay, if there's anything you should get from this podcast today is you need
to watch The
Oh
Mission.
my goodness.
What is that about?
Okay, so
Robert Duvall, right?
No,
Robert
De Niro
Robert De Niro.
and Jeremy Irons,
love him.
Jesuit
De
priest.
Niro? It's not Duvall?
It's De Niro.
Okay.
This is back in 1750. The Jesuits are in the jungles, creating missions for the natives that are living in the jungles. Jeremy Irons has to go into the jungles because one of the priests was killed, and he creates a mission there. Meanwhile, Robert De Niro is actually a slave trader, and so he's doing the exact opposite of what Jeremy Irons is doing, where he's actually going to the jungles and stealing people for slaves. He ends up killing his brother, and he can't live with himself for this. And so Jeremy Irons meets him and challenges him, that God can forgive you, but he doesn't believe it. So Robert De Niro goes into the jungle with Jeremy Irons, and that's where the theme of redemption comes up. It's very powerful. I mean, it is
Is it scary? Is it bloody?
Not like a movie today is
Are
bloody.
there any zombies?
No zombies.
Okay.
I mean, it's very sad.
Oh,
And
good. That's what I'm looking for.
There you go.
That's not what I'm looking for.
Okay.
But once again, in this movie, it's very normal. Like Robert De Niro is reading 1 Corinthians when he's talking about love, and so it was very normalized in this film, that they would bring up scripture, talk about God, talk about forgiveness. But then there became, this struggle of like, what does God want and what's going on here? All these horrible things happen. So there are no easy answers, but it ends with hope. It's very hopeful, and I cry every time I see it. It's very powerful.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
The Mission.
Chariots of Fire, The Mission.
The Mission.
What you got next?
Life is Beautiful.
I've never seen that one either.
Phil, have you seen that?
No, it looked depressing.
That's why I don't watch them either.
Okay, I've got some on here that are not depressing.
Yeah, okay.
This one is depressing, but it's a foreign film, and I'd recommend you see it with
It's a
subtitles.
Holocaust film.
It is a Holocaust
Right?
film.
Great.
But hold on.
Wonderful.
Have you ever read the Bible? I mean, there's some pretty horrible things happening
I skip
there.
those
I
parts.
stay away from those parts.
It opens, so there's a husband and a wife, and they have a son, Joshua, and it opens with the son as an adult narrating the film, and he's saying, "This is my story. This is the sacrifice my father made. This was his gift to me." I get choked up even reading those lines. And so the father's story is a parable for what Jesus did for us. It is so in line from the Garden of Eden and the love story between God and his creation, and then things falling apart, and then the sacrifice that was made, and then ending up in paradise. It is profound.
Okay.
Maybe I'll try it.
Oh, you should.
Okay. What do you got next?
Okay, you'll like this.
It's the Roberto Benigni.
Yeah.
Isn't he the star?
They won. He won
He
Best
won the
Foreign
Oscar
Picture.
and he stood up on his chair
That's
at the
it.
Oscars. Yeah,
He's like the
remember
Robin
that
Williams of Italy. You know,
Yeah.
crazy. You know,
Right.
outrageous.
Yeah,
Okay,
right.
all right,
Out
all
of
right.
control.
Yeah.
And
Don't know
then
what
he
to expect.
overstayed his welcome, and he hasn't been in anything for a while.
It's
because
true.
he tried to do a really terrible version of Pinocchio.
Yeah. Did you see it?
No,
He looks like Pinocchio.
a terrible version of Pinocchio.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 4.
Little Miss Sunshine.
I love
I
that movie.
love
Isn't
that
that great?
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
First of all, like that, when I saw that with Angie, the whole theater was roaring. Everyone
Yeah.
applauded at the end. And then we went out and had a great meal and talked about it. And that's one of my best nights ever, just like having that experience.
Okay, so the language is kind of bad.
Very bad.
Grandpa's doing drugs.
Very bad.
Brother's not so great. What's the
That's the
spiritual-
point. That's
what's-
the point.
What? What is the point?
That they're all flawed people. They all
Yeah.
made mistakes. They're all suffering. They all are imperfect.
Yeah.
And they're all selfish. And then things happen where they have to go on this journey together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in this journey that they learn to love each other.
Isn't
And
that
all
the,
their,
isn't
with
that
all
the
their
theme of
imperfections.
every movie?
Well,
We don't get along, but we have to go on this journey together.
well, actually, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. That is kind
But
of
it's the journey that's entertaining.
What did they
and-
learn?
Well, that they need each other. That what their desires are not as important as each other.
Okay.
At the end, they all give up something.
They all come together for the little girl.
Ultimately, that's what the plot point was. But ultimately, they just come
What
together.
a crazy off the wall movie.
Yeah, I
who
know,
directed
I
that?
know.
It was some.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't have it in front of
anyway,
me.
it's
Yeah, that's my
yeah.
Jonathan Dayton. Well, good job.
But yeah,
Jonathan.
it is. I mean, okay. So here's a good point. You
one of
bring
my
up
favorite films.
Yeah, you bring up the language and so forth. So it's tough to recommend to people.
Right.
But at the same time, it's the world a lot of people live in.
Yeah.
So since you said that, I will let you know that one of the ones that has a lot of deep spiritual implications for me is Midnight Run.
Wait, with
you ever
Billy
seen-
Crystal?
No.
with
Robert De Niro.
Robert De Niro and Charles
sh-
Grodin.
Yes, and the language.
What's the spiritual lesson in that?
Oh
I
my
wanna hear this.
gosh, there is forgiveness and redemption, and
Yeah.
there's
Okay.
there's love, and there's these two people that hate each other, and they have to go on a journey together, and they're changed people at the end.
This sounds familiar.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's one of the most hilarious movies I've ever seen. And, I think that's what's so interesting is that God really can use just about anything to reach
Yeah.
us where we are.
Have you ever seen
know?
Emperor's New Groove?
Yes.
Great movie.
It is a great movie.
Two characters, they hate each other, but they have to go on a journey together. They learn to love each other. Okay, you've done 4. Number 5.
Once.
No, I've never seen that one.
What? Yeah, the musical.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it's I guess you call it a musical because
It's a musical-ish.
yeah,
It has a lot of songs in it.
yeah. The premise is the lead guy. He's a songwriter, and so he's putting a CD together. So he meets this girl, and they end up recording together. And so there's these songs throughout, and it's for his CD. But
And
the
they
songs,
never become romantically involved.
well,
Do they go on a
spoiler
journey
alert.
together?
Well, that's why it's so interesting.
That's exactly why, because
It's
both
why
of,
it's so interesting.
yeah, both of them have left their loved ones for different reasons.
Yeah.
And are considering, going off together. And at the end, they decide to remain true to their original commitments.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy especially, he does something so selfless out of love for someone that he's not going to get anything from it.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's where the spiritual part of it came, where
Okay.
it's like just how, we need to, what God calls us to do in terms of our commitments and loving people. And it was
But another great movie where two leads do not get romantically involved.
do not get,
Yeah, but have life-changing connection.
like you think they're supposed to have.
Yeah, like you think, oh, I know where this is going, and it doesn't.
Frozen. They don't get together. You thought the prince was coming.
You have
You've
kids.
been watching
right.
with your kids.
Right. Lost in Translation.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, Bill Murray.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because they're lost. There's two souls that are lost, and they find home and connection, but they don't violate their commitments.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
Interesting.
Okay.
That's good.
So once, okay. Last one. We asked for 6.
Sling Blade.
Actually, I asked for 3, and you came up with 6.
I know.
Sling Blade.
Sling Blade.
Sling Blade.
Yeah,
Oh,
with what's his name?
Billy Bob Thornton.
Billy Bob Thornton.
Isn't that
his,
like violent?
Well, there's violence in it, but you don't really see it. It's a violent story, but it's not graphic violence that you witness. The story is Carl is being released from prison. I don't know how you describe him. He has mental challenges and he's slow, and he ended up killing someone. He's released, and he befriends a boy who's probably 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, somewhere around there. The boy's mom is a single mom. She's dating Dwight Yoakam.
Okay.
Sure. Aren't we all?
Yes. Who's
I'm
great
not.
in the movie. He's the bad guy. But it's a story of friendship and love. And once again, two unlikely characters go on a journey, and Carl demonstrates love in a very selfless way. Like, he sacrifices himself in order to save the boy. Doesn't sacrifice himself literally, like dying, but metaphorically, he sacrifices himself. He gives up everything he has to save the boy. Once again, another tearjerker.
How many of those movies is the theme kind of a Christ figure of self-sacrifice for saving someone else?
Are the ones we just listed?
Yeah. Now, Chariots of Fire is not. It's not a Christ figure in Chariots of Fire. The Mission, is that? Life is Beautiful, definitely.
Definitely.
Sling Blade.
Yes.
Okay.
Once, not so much, and not so much Little Miss Sunshine. The Mission,
Right.
No, I wouldn't say there's a Christ figure in there.
Okay.
You know, at church on Sunday, my pastor said that he saw Hacksaw Ridge, and it was, have you seen it? That there was an incredible Christ figure in that movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that true?
Yeah.
How did that play out?
Well, you're going to have to go see the movie.
I'm never going to see
it's
that
on the
movie.
Movie Proposal podcast.
It is?
It is?
We discuss it.
Okay. Yeah.
Did you
So go
discuss
check
about
it
there
out.
being a Christ figure in there?
Well,
Well, I mean, Mel Gibson, he is prone to Christ figureness
That's true.
in his filmmaking. The Passion of the Christ,
Right.
more literally than others. But there's very much a...
Is he in it?
No.
He's not in it.
Okay. I'm gonna throw 4 movies out to add to that list.
Is Hudsucker Proxy on there?
that's a good one.
No, I don't find spiritual themes in Hudsucker Proxy.
just
Although
wondering.
I could if
I know it's one of your
thought
favorites.
about it long enough. Okay, Millions. Have you ever seen Millions?
Yeah, wait.
British film, Danny Boyle directed. Danny Boyle's only family film. He made Trainspotting and Slumdog Millionaire.
Didn't he do the one about the boy in India who was on the...
Kite Runner?
No.
Slumdog Millionaire.
Oh, you said that.
Yeah, he did that. So this is the story of a little boy in England whose mother has just died. He's with his father and his older brother. He's obsessed with the saints. He learns the stats of saints like other people learn baseball stats. And he goes, then they're moving because his mother died, and apparently they've got either an insurance settlement or they got some money, so they're moving to the suburbs, out of the house where they lived with his mother, into new schools. His older brother just wants him to act normal, stop bringing up saints for his class projects. But he takes it even further in that occasionally he sees saints. He has visions of saints, and they talk to him. So he builds a cardboard fort in the backyard, and he's sitting in there by the train tracks, and this old saint smoking a cigarette, a female, like an old nun, shows up talking to him. He says, are you allowed to do that up there? And she says, you can do whatever you want up there. It's down here. You have to be careful. So there's all these really great lines, but a bag of money falls into his cardboard hut. It's the Millions. It's fallen out of the train. He believes it's from God.
Oh.
And the purpose he's been given it is to help the poor. So he's trying to find the poor in the wealthy suburb to give, but his big brother knows about the money and he wants to spend it on himself. And it's the story of a family that's lost its faith because of tragedy, except this young boy who's holding on to faith. And he finally learns that the money was from robbers, not from God. And then he almost loses his faith. And it's really... Anyway, and like 4 or 5 different biblical figures show up in the film in little visions that he has to
Cool.
interact with them. Really cool
When did that
film.
one come out?
Probably 10 years ago. Time Bandits.
That was on our podcast a couple weeks ago.
Really?
Yeah, that was my old.
Terry Gilliam, one of his second film after Jabberwocky, I think. Time Bandits story of a group of time-traveling midgets, dwarfs, that jump through time and kidnap a boy and take him jumping through time to steal things.
Well, yeah, I can see all the spiritual implication here.
And the reason they can do this is because they used to work for God. They worked for God making stuff. They were in the department of trees and shrubs. And one of them, the dumbest one, made this incredible bright pink shrub that smelled terrible, and it got them canned. So God fired them. But the thing is, when God made the universe, he only had 6 days to do it. So it was kind of a rush job. And there are holes in the fabric of time. And there's one map that shows you where all the holes are. And so as they're on their way out the door, they steal the map to use it to be time bandits and jump through time and steal stuff. And God is chasing them through all of this, saying, bring back what you have stolen to me. And it ends up they are attracted to the center of the universe by the ultimate evil being, basically by the devil, who wants the map. He wants the map. He wants them to bring it to him, and God is chasing them. And in the very end, God actually shows up, literally walks onto the scene, and he's an elderly British gentleman in a beautiful suit.
Of course.
Yes, and it's hilarious. And I could never make the film. It frustrated me because I could never make it because it didn't show, and this is a big frustration. If we're going to show God or Jesus, they have to be perfect. They can't have any character flaws.
Well, that, by their very nature, they're
right. The problem is, dramatically speaking, perfect people don't resonate with us as characters. We don't believe them. If there's someone who appears to be perfect in a movie, there's
too good to be
something
true.
Evil behind the curtain. Because no one's that good. So it's very hard to dramatize God or Jesus.
Well, Morgan Freeman does a great job.
Yeah, he's kind of a side character. Yeah. But he's allowed to say some funny things because of what's not a Christian film from a Christian, company.
That is a great film.
Yeah. Okay, Time Bandits. Number 3, Forrest Gump.
Huh.
I do like Forrest Gump.
Hold on, let me think about it for a second. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
No, I don't. I want to hear it.
Go ahead.
What's the central theme of Forrest Gump?
Well, besides running, the central theme.
That is not a theme. That is an action.
Well, he's he's a common man who.
It's a description of a character.
What's
the central theme? No, it's not love. It has a question. The whole film is about answering a question.
Where's home?
That's symbolized in the very first image, which is of a
feather.
Is life random, or do things happen for a reason?
Oh.
That's the question of Forrest Gump.
I don't think so.
I buy it. Come on.
That's why he says life is like a box of chocolates.
You never know what you're going to get.
That's the random thing. You never know what you're going to get. But then he's at all these amazing places at exactly the right time, and these amazing things happen to him at exactly the right time. And he gets to the end, and Jenny has died, and he's standing at her grave.
Spoiler alert.
And he says, is life random, or do things happen for a purpose? He actually expresses the central question.
I don't remember that.
And then he answers it. He answers the central question.
I forget. What did he say?
He says, I think it's both. I think both is right. That's what he says. But then there's Lieutenant Dan, the arc of Lieutenant Dan, which ends up, his arc closes with, I think Lieutenant Dan made his peace with God. Because he was railing against God because he thought his purpose was to die in battle. And he ends up being saved by Forrest Gump, and he thinks he can have no purpose and has no redemption because he missed his destiny. That was my destiny, Gump, and you stole it from me. And he ends up in that storm making his peace with God. He asks God to smite him, to destroy him, which also brings up Bruce Almighty, speaking of requesting smiting. But that's another one.
We got to go rent Forrest Gump.
Yeah, go watch Forrest Gump again. You missed it. And then finally, one last one, Iron Giant.
I love
that's a great
the
one.
Iron Giant.
You want a Christ figure?
There you go.
You want a Christ figure?
Man, that's fantastic.
And now that's been echoed in Big Hero 6. Almost the exact same
I
dynamic.
haven't seen that.
Robot that gives himself to save a boy.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, in fact, that's a fairly common theme of Christ figures as robots or animals that sacrifice themselves. Baloo the bear in Jungle Book, The little scene of him supposedly dead.
Or in Inside Out, the bear, what's his name?
Oh, yeah. Inside Out, the toy.
The imaginary friend?
Yeah, the imaginary friend.
Oh,
Boogaloo or something
awesome.
like
that? Okay. So there's, what do you think, last question, because then we have to wrap it up. What would you like to see Christian filmmakers do better?
Well, I think the problem is the people, and you're asking the question, and there's a lot behind the question, which I assume what you're saying is, why aren't Christian films any good? Is that what you're saying?
I'm not saying that. I am not saying that. I am saying, what would you like to see? I mean, why aren't any Christian movies in your list?
Because there really aren't that many. A lot of it just has to do with the people who are paying to have them made versus the people who are making them. If there were more filmmakers who are Christians making films, that from that perspective, without an agenda, just telling a simple truth or focusing on a simple beauty, they could tell a great story from that. Versus, someone give you a bunch of money and say this, go make a movie.
Okay.
Because those feel phony.
What do you want to see? More honesty? More?
Yeah, I want to see. I mean, the thing about Little Miss Sunshine is it's real.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if they knew what they were making when they were making it, but and I really hate to knock Christian movies, but like Fireproof, when they're arguing, the husband and wife are arguing, it does not seem real. Okay. But in Little Miss Sunshine, when they're arguing, I mean, I don't
but
talk
a lot
that way,
about
but
that has to go back to the acting.
Well,
the writing.
The script.
And the writing.
Yeah. The acting has something to do with it, but more the script, I think, in those two examples.
I agree.
Because it just, what they were saying came across as scripted.
Can I ask
real.
just one other esoteric question?
Yes.
So it's true throughout all of literature, not just movies. You have this repeated theme of good and evil and this Christ figure.
Yes.
Why is that?
It's an echo in
which came
all
first?
Literature.
Do we tell those stories? Can we use that as evidence that this larger story is true?
Some people do. Some people do say that it's a story that seems to be in our DNA. Like it's in us, this story that we aren't good enough and someone else is going to die on our behalf.
And we're trying to find our home. We're lost.
Yep.
Can I say something real quick?
Yes.
We're going to do Rogue One in one of the next two podcasts. So Star Wars fans, get ready.
All right.
I just have to say, Josh is awesome and fun, and he's got great thoughts. So listen to his podcast.
You should listen to it.
I should.
Yeah.
Why do I have to listen when I have you here?
Don't do what Christian does. Listen to Josh's podcast with Skye. Okay. I think it made Josh perspire the first time he watched Chariots of Fire, and he saw that spirituality could be a cinematic reality. But then he didn't need his parents' permission to watch Robert De Niro in The Mission, and once again we saw that truth could be conveyed in film with proof. And then we had a really fun time with Little Miss Sunshine. That was so good for us to watch.
Keep going.
Bring it home.
Wrap it up.
I need a rhyme for watch.
Swatch.
Swatch. That's great. Yes, Swiss watches are called swatch.
A notch. Like put a notch in your belt.
I feel like a dunce because I forgot to think about the movie once. But we thank you, Josh, for bringing your movies, because as a guy who once worked for Big Idea, you're really, really groovy. So see you next time. Rogue One. Okay. Woohoo. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Bye,
Go
everybody.
to patreon.com/Phil Vischer, and you can support the podcast so we can pay our interns and keep the lights on and keep making more stuff. And we will see you next week back here with Skye. Bye.
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 The Phil Vischer Podcast is produced by Phil Vischer Enterprises and recorded live at Jellyfish Lab Studios. This episode was edited by Jason Rugg and was fact-checked by absolutely no one. For more information, go to philvischer.com.